guys want to get some coffee or something?
Can I get a cup of coffee? Black? Can't you see we talking? White?
Even little kids in Mexico drink coffee.
Well, I'm not a little kid in Mexico, okay?
That is the best coffee I've ever tasted.
A damn fine cup of coffee.
You want a cup of coffee?
No coffee.
Coffee drinker, huh?
Maybe we can grab some coffee?
Coffee, 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 coffee.
God damn, Jimmy. This is some serious gourmet shit. Me and Vincent would have been satisfied with some freeze-dried Taster's Choice, right? And he springs this serious gourmet shit on us.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good golly, Miss Molly. Welcome to Morning Coffee with Brian on Pop Culture Minefield. Show number 2, and they still haven't expelled me yet. I'm still here. So I'm working hard on remaining here. But good morning, and there's my coffee. This show lasts as long as this coffee lasts. So I got the biggest mug I possibly could, which I'm used to hearing I'm the biggest mug possible. But yeah, great to see you all, and great to see my wonderful panel and guest today. So I would like to start by introducing my guest, a man who knows everything there is to know about science fiction and more. It's Jason from Sci-Fi for Me TV. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good, sir. And it is a fine looking mug that you've got there. So.
It is. I can't remember whether I got it in the Southwest somewhere. I can't remember exactly where. Arizona, New Mexico. Maybe it was Santa Fe. It's one of those places. Yep. Reminds me, as I'm in the prairies here, it reminds me of the warm weather that we're not getting. But also here this morning, as usual, are my friends Martin. How are you, sir? Hello.
Good morning, everyone.
And how are you doing?
Oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. Thank you.
Cool. And my great friend John Daswolfen. How are you, mate?
I think he's at the door at this moment.
I said the door. He's at the door. Oh, is that what that door? I thought it was you playing that noise. It's a doorbell.
No.
I thought you were playing that to remind me of something. Because Martin keeps having to prompt me to remember things. But I would like to say hello to everybody in the chat. We have our great friend Anima Confusa here. Good to see you, lass. We have Penny. Good morning to you, Penny. The wonderful Davina Duckworth. Good morning, Davina. D-Bud Martin, great friend of my channel and this channel, many other channels. Dragon Ruse. Good morning to you. I know Martin's busy throwing the chats up in the screen. I'm out of order, but never mind. We'll get to everybody. Andy Morrow. Good to see you, Andy. All the way from the UK by the looks of it. Penny, did I mention Penny? Well, Penny's here. Monkey G-Bus. And Jason obviously is in the chat too, as is Martin and John and myself. We'll get to everybody as we go. So you're a member, as Anima says, you're a member of the diversity group. Well, if diversity is old and bald, then that is me. And I'm now 60 years and 1 day old. So I've added an extra day since yesterday. I did want to show something before we started, so just bear with me. So, oh yeah, here we go. So Jason, I wanted to do the promo first, really, so we can. So this is your channel, Sci-Fi for Me TV. Just give us, for those who are not familiar with you, and I hope they all are, and please go subscribe. Give us a rundown of what you're up to.
Well, we got started in 2009, so we've been around almost 14 years now, and we cover science fiction, fantasy, horror. We have a number of programs on both YouTube, Odyssey. It ports over to Rumble, so you can find us pretty much on any of those video platforms. And it's mostly news and commentary, and we do our best to keep those separate. And the news is the news, and we report the news. And then, if we've got opinions of different things, we make it clear that that's opinions, and we don't call anybody names if they disagree with us.
What a
And we don't,
revolutionary idea.
I know, and we don't follow any political agendas and anything. My show in the noon hour, live from the bunker, I can sometimes get a little bit more opinionated on that stuff, but we try to concentrate on the genre space more than anything else. But, yeah,
Cool, yeah, and I'm so glad you've been able to join us today, mate. I know we've streamed a couple of times, but we've never had the chance to really talk about things. You love science fiction, I love science fiction, so this is neat for me to be able to do this. So thank you for
I'm looking forward to it. I'm glad to be able to be here.
No, thanks for being here, mate. And I would, before I forget, I want to say a big hello to everybody out there on KGRA Digital Broadcasting, out there in the big wide world of digital radio and internet. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Hope you all enjoy the show, and it's awesome to have you all here listening and watching us. So today, I'm going to try and figure out how to remove this damn screen now. There we go. Did it. Today I wanted to talk about something that it's a book in a series of books that I got into a few years ago, recommended to me actually by my daughter, who's also into science fiction. I'm old school sci-fi, like I'm old school rock and so on, and that I grew up in the era of grew up in the 60s and 70s reading the previous era stuff, Asimov, Heinlein. These were the guys I got into, Arthur C. Clarke, Bradbury, Philip K. Dick, and so on. So very old school sci-fi. And over the years, there's always been something fairly new to get into. I wouldn't say I was necessarily reading a lot of current or new science fiction these days. I think for the last 30, 40 years, Greg Bear was probably my biggest. I was a big fan of Greg Bear, sadly deceased, and his books. And there's been a few other bits and pieces here and there. And I was looking for something, though, in the milieu to read, and my daughter suggested I try this book by a Chinese author. And I'm going to mangle a lot of names today, so you got to forgive me in advance. Liu Cixin, I believe, maybe the way it's pronounced. So forgive me if I don't get that right, but I will throw that up on the screen just so that you can see the author in question. He's a Chinese author, and I hadn't read a lot of, and I still haven't, in a sense, read a lot of Chinese or even Asian science fiction. But it's certainly, when I took a look at the book, it appealed to me. And it's actually a book that's, the original novel is called The Three-Body Problem. And it became part of a series called Remembrance of Earth's Past. And this is around about, I don't know, what era would this be? This book was released in 2008. Became a bit of a hit, both in China and internationally. Translations are by a guy called Ken Liu, and it's sweeping in scale, if you want to put it that way. It's a multi-generational, multi-dimensional story with a lot of different elements in it, and an awful lot to unpack. So I did read the book, really enjoyed it, read the two subsequent novels, and there was an animated adaptation, which I haven't seen, but I heard wasn't particularly good. But more recently, two things have happened. One is that Tencent in China did a Chinese television adaptation of 30 episodes. I'm assuming just the first book, because I haven't finished it yet. I'm like 20 episodes in, and I think it's just the first book specifically they're talking about. And then Netflix have announced that they're going to do an adaptation, which is going to be, I don't know whether that's going to be as extensive in terms of numbers of episodes or how they're going to split that up. I thought it was maybe going to be like three episodes, longer ones, because the Chinese ones are about 40 minutes long. So Anyway, really got into this novel. The author himself, we're going to talk a little bit about later, is a little bit controversial. He does live in China and has expressed some support over the years for the, and it's understandable if you live there, for the current Chinese regime and some of their issues. And after the top of the hour, I think particularly once we've discussed this book and this show, we're going to talk about the Hugos this year, the science fiction awards, which are in China, and some controversy around that. So there's a lot to unpack here. But we will start by talking about the book and the TV show and some of the elements in it for those who have not read it. So are we biting off more than we can chew? Probably. Because these are epics. So I do want to start by playing a trailer for the show. There are a couple of trailers out there. One which has a lot of music in it, which YouTube didn't seem to like when I tested it, even if re-editing it. So we're going to go for the one that doesn't seem to have a problem for us to watch. And I'll give you a little bit of a taste of some of the imagery and some of the concepts that are in both the book and the show. And the show, I have to say, is quite a faithful adaptation. So I am going to find the button and hit that to watch this trailer, wherever I've put it. Here we go.
你的人生中发生过重大变故？没有。那你的人生属于一种偶然。可是大部分的人不都是这样吗？那大部分人的人生都属于偶然。我的眼睛不是陪伴照，而是有个倒计时在我眼前。
一个天体物理学家居然相信物理学不存在。3天后，也就是14号凌晨1点到5点，整个宇宙将为你闪烁。倒计时的尽头到底是什么？
他们越是让你害怕什么，也越不能让他们不愿意什么。
你说的主。 一个人还是一群人？
如果你现在问我有没有外星人，我会很确定的跟你说有。
物理学不存在了，只是我们认为的物理学可能不存在。我可以在这待一辈子的。
处在一片无法自救的火海之中，而您是点燃这把烈火的人。
消灭人类暴政。这是人类的落日。
Don't press that button. Too late. So that's the with English subtitles is the trailer for the Chinese television adaptation of the show.
So let me ask this: having not read the books yet, the three people that are standing in the field in the formation there,
Yeah.
Are they the three body problem, or is this just indicative of how the structure of this story works?
That's an interesting metaphor which I hadn't thought of, and you may be right. That isn't explicitly what the three body problem is. Although the fact that you've just said that has made me want to go back and look at that again. So the basic premise of the novel, and indeed translated into the show there, and the show so far, I'm like 18, 20 episodes in, out of 30, it's a fairly faithful adaptation. Basic premise is that chronologically the story starts in the Maoist era of revolutionary China in about 1967 with I don't know. It's not a Korean show; it's a Chinese show, and it basically there is a secret development which is supposedly a weapons development with a large antenna, supposedly to disrupt. And I'm going to do a lot of spoilers here. Forgive me, because it's the only way to really talk about this. But put simply, this huge satellite on the top of the mountain, satellite dish on the top of the mountain, the Chinese have developed. It's supposedly for disrupting foreign satellites, but in reality is a SETI project. And they believe that there is an alien civilization out in a particular sector of the sky, and they're trying to contact. You saw some stuff that are around "Do not answer," and that might have been good advice.
It usually is.
It usually is, because the second novel particularly is called The Dark Forest, and if anyone knows what the Dark Forest the theme is, it's, don't talk to anybody in the universe because it could be dangerous, so stay as quiet as you can. So that's one of the elements in this particular story is should we be even talking to anybody if we get a message? But somebody decides that they want to do such a thing. So let me just share my screen here so I can just get a little bit of an image up. So there's the book. That's actually the background image they use in this novel. Is going to be the artwork for the Netflix adaptation. Yeah, so Davinia mentions The Wandering Earth, which is the same author and is on Netflix. And that's more about how do we move the Earth to stop the place getting burnt up when the sun expands. So that's where the novel does jump about chronologically a little bit, but it's set in, and the show is set in current era Earth, but it was current era 2007. But there's a lot of flashbacks to the communist, the Mao era of communism in China.
The Great Revolution.
Yes, and indeed, one of the principal characters in the show is a scientist called Yi Wenji or Yi Wenyi, and she works at this base back in the 60s. She's an astrophysicist, and her father is or was imprisoned and killed by Mao for being an intellectual and not adhering to whatever. And she's sent to a labor camp. But it just so happens that this labor camp is very near this satellite dish, and somebody works there that actually knew her and realizes that she's rotting away in this labor camp, and they could use her in this base. She's an astrophysicist. And she's actually, so this is her in her older days, in the current day. And she's a bit of a mysterious character, because one of these, you don't know what she appears to be good, appears to be a nice, old, clever lady. Maybe she's not all she appears to be, because within the current era in the book is, and the premise is where it kicks off, is that a bunch of scientists are apparently committing suicide or dying in mysterious accidents. And there's an organization called the Frontiers of Science that these people belong to. And they're all killing themselves and or dying in these mysterious accidents. So the authorities and there's a certain political structure in the book, which is quite interesting, are investigating why these mainly physicists are all so keen to kill themselves. And the implication is that they've discovered something which makes physics as we know it completely null and void. And they're basically, physics does not exist is the phrase that keeps recurring. So there's a mystery within in the story, is what's happening to these scientists. There's also this organization, the Frontiers of Science, which is involved. As it turns out, this lady here, although apparently nothing to do with them, is a lot more heavily involved than we imagined at the beginning. There's also a game. There's a mysterious virtual reality game that this Frontiers of Science gets scientists to play. And the game itself is central to the entire premise of the book, because the game is based upon the three-body problem. And it's a VR game. And you go into this game, and you're in a world, apparently Earth, but as turns out later, it isn't, where there is a chaotic structure of destruction and then regeneration. So sun rises and falls, disappears, comes back. There are freezing areas, there are burning areas, what they call in the book stable eras and chaotic eras. And these scientists, as part of the game, are supposed to try and figure out how to predict these periods. But as it turns out, they're not doing it on behalf of anybody on Earth. They're doing it on behalf of an alien civilization called Tri-Solaris, who lives in that environment where they cannot predict their own stable eras. They haven't got a calendar that will do it. And therefore their civilization rises and falls. And it has... So they're trying to get these Earth scientists to determine surreptitiously, because they don't know it's on behalf of these aliens, what is how to predict a stable era so they can then advance. And the connection to these Tri-Solaris people was made way back in that antenna, in that base in the communist era. And this woman, as a younger scientist, pressed the button to answer them, even being told by somebody from that race themselves, don't talk to us. This could be really tricky. Fast forward to the 2000s, and they were right. So there's other things going on too. The book covers environmental issues, SETI, alien invasion, multi-dimensional aspects, which become more and more important in the second and third books. The fact that the Tri-Solaris people have figured out how to access higher dimensions and then pack a supercomputer into something the size of a photon, which they've then sent to Earth to monitor people and to fuck up all the scientific, excuse my language, screw up all the scientific, I beg your pardon for that, to screw up all these scientific experiments. So, causing chaos among science on Earth, because they do not want Earth science to advance, because then they would resist an alien invasion. Because these people look at our planet and go, wouldn't it be nice to live there? Isn't that nice real estate? As opposed to the hellhole we live on. So,
this sounds like and again, I'm coming to this from a position of ignorance here, but this sounds kind of like a subversion of the Second Coming. You know, your Tri-Solaris, you have your Father, Son, Holy Spirit, you have your higher plane existent beings, angels and principalities and such, and it's almost like we're setting up the resistance against the Second Coming here. And I could be completely wrong. This is just I
think you're right, and I think this is where the Fermi paradox element comes in as well. So why is nobody in the universe talking to each other, and why is somebody warning Earth back in the 60s, don't talk to us? we know you're out there. Stop talking to us because there's others that I associate with that are not good. However, this young scientist presses the button. You see her reaching for that button. And the reason she does that is, but you're right, so it is a subversion of that in a sense, because it's the factions on Earth in 2007, the Frontiers of Science, who we don't know anything about their aims at the beginning, other than the people associated with them keep dying. They are also split into factions, and some of those factions are desperately seeking aliens to come to Earth and save us. Others just want the destruction of everything because they're misanthropes, and others think that it's a good thing because we might advance and learn things from them. And so there's multiple factions in the Frontiers of Science. There's a whole strand of them, which turns out to be the real baddies on Earth, who are the ones that wish the aliens to just come and destroy us. And the reason they do that, and it's quite explicit in the book and in the show, is that the young scientist we saw, the older version of there, Ye Wenji, she reads the book The Silent Spring. And she believes the Earth's headed for total environmental destruction because of humans, and that humans need the aliens to come and teach them how to live properly. Unfortunately, some of the people under her, she's the commander, as we find out later. I'm giving all these spoilers away. The authorities are desperately trying to figure out who's running this organization. But she has people in that organization who agree with her, but more, in that they think that humans should be eliminated completely to save the planet. So there's all sorts of interesting environmental discussions in there. Some people see it as an environmentalist story pointing out that humans are bad and we should change our ways. Others see it as kind of against that message, that we don't need to burn everything down to save everything. There's a lot of discussion about what did the author really mean when he introduced these elements to the book. It appears pro-activist environmentalist in places, and then in other places it says, no, don't burn it all down don't get rid of our technology and burn humans down just to save everything.
A lot of mixed messages in the book.
A lot of mixed messages. It leaves you to make your own mind up, other than the fact that she and her organization have become obsessed with this idea. It's led them to reach out to these mysterious aliens called Trisolaris, and they have different reasons for wanting to bring them to Earth, some of which are really bad. And there's a kind of a Bill Gates figure who's got a lot of money and is one of the worst in the let's burn it all down to save the planet types. So all that's going on. One of the main characters in the book is this guy, and the actor's Liu Zhang, and he plays a character who's a nanotechnologist scientist called Wang Miao, and he's like the central scientific figure in the book, and he's being courted by the Frontiers of Science to be part of their organization, but he's also extremely skeptical. But strange things start happening to him. He starts to see in front of his eyes this countdown. He first sees it in photographs that he takes because he's an avid photographer, and he says, what's these little numbers? They appear and it's a countdown. He figures out it's a countdown, and then it appears in front of his eyes. When he's told to stop his experiments in nanotechnology, the countdown goes away. When he resumes them, the countdown comes back. And of course, he's freaked. And he also sees the universe flicker in that the cosmic, the older lady says, you're going to see at a certain time, the universe will flicker. The cosmic microwave background radiation will flicker. And he actually sees it with his own eyes. So he's freaked. But he decides not to let it commit suicide like the rest of them do when they see this. He says, I'm going to try and figure out what's going on. So that's quite an interesting thing, the countdown thing. He doesn't know what the countdown is working towards, though. what is the countdown? Why is there a countdown? He doesn't really understand what's going on. There's actually a really good image here. Some of the artwork in the show and some of the production stuff is really beautiful. That's the radio telescope on the mountaintop in the Marxist era, in the Mao era, sorry. And the sets that they've used to build all this are fantastic. I mean, it just looks great, and I think in the show they've really put a lot of great store into the production values of it.
Definitely not a low budget production.
It's not a low budget production. I think they must have spent in China. They must have spent a lot of money on this show.
Well, in looking at the trailer, the cinematography looks pretty nice. There's some really good shots in there.
It is. And I wanted to give you a little bit of an idea of what it looks like within the game. So they're playing this VR game. They don't know the purpose in it. And it features, you go into the game as a player and you can pretend to be Newton or Copernicus or Galileo. And the whole premise of it is to try and figure out why these chaotic eras keep coming and destroying everything. And it goes through eras on Earth. From pre-civilization, it's civilization, and then they get to the Iron Age, and they get to the Steam Age, and then everything gets destroyed. But every so often they get further and further in figuring out how to predict these chaotic eras. Now they think it's just a game and it's supposed to be Earth, but it isn't. It's this other place, Tri-Solaris. So I'm going to just show a little bit of that, if that's okay, just to show you what it looks like. And you'll say, well, this looks a bit game-like. Well, it is, because they're meant to be within a game. So that's where you would say, oh, that doesn't look real. Well, it isn't meant to be. They're in this weird VR game. So let me just show a little bit of... oh, here we go. This is a good one. So within this civilization, and they're in this weird environment where it's suddenly gone super cold. From having a sun, the sun's disappeared. Bang, and it's now cold for decades, centuries, thousands of years. And then another aspect of that is the rehydration aspect. Oops. Forgive me. Yeah, so at times that are good, they decide to rehydrate.
Interesting.
It is. It's really neat, and the parts in the game are fantastic because and it was good in the book the way it was described too. You'll get total destruction. All of a sudden, 3 suns rise and the planet melts, or the surface melts. Then they disappear, and nobody can figure out what's going on. So they're trying to figure out this 3-body problem. That's why all these top scientists are being invited by this Frontiers of Science on Earth to go in and try and figure this out and predict it. Wang starts to figure it out. He doesn't realize, of course, he's doing it on the behalf of the bad guys, but he's in the game trying to figure out what's going on. But he's also assisted for me by the best character in the show, which is a cop, played by this Hua Yu. He's the best character in the actual show for me, and he is basically an ordinary cop, a detective, but a really good one, who's been invited to help investigate why these scientists are all dying, and it's around the globe. Now, here's where one of the interesting parts of the book come in. It's set in 2007, and it clearly makes a lot of references to that era. There's the Beijing Olympics and so on. You don't get any idea of the political structure of the Earth in the book. So the author is very coy about calling out specific governments or governmental structures. You do know, and it is displayed, that there are a number of military, what they call battle commands, that have been formed in each region of the world to help find out why this is happening, because it's a global phenomenon. Physicists throwing themselves off bridges and committing suicide, and super colliders not working, like giving different results every time. All the scientists are dying because of the... Yeah, so they call this. Sorry, I'm going to add them to the stream. So they call this wrong one. Present share screen. You see, this is what you get. This is what you get happens when you get amateurs doing the show. So this guy's a cop, and he's a hard-bitten, hard-boiled detective who doesn't really have a lot of time for fancy scientific theories, etc. So it's a bit of a trope, you know. But he's a murder detective and whatever. But he's called in by the Chinese or the Asian Battle Command, who are in this base in a museum, trying to figure out what's going on to their scientists. And they're in touch with all the other regions, North America, Europe. They're all trying to solve it. He's called in by the Chinese side and basically told, do what you have to do to figure out why these scientists are dying. So being a hard-bitten street cop, he doesn't really give a shit about the physics side of it. He just says, well, and he isn't thrown by any of that. He goes, well, I don't really care if these super colliders are not working. I've got some murders to solve. And he's funny as well. He's a really neat character. I really like this guy. He's probably the most relatable character in the entire book because a lot of it is really cold scientists. You know, they're scientists, they're analytical. And the show itself does have a lot of this meaningful staring into space going on. So,
well, you know, it's interesting that you say that about him being the street level, because in a lot of stories where you have high concept ideas and themes, you always need to have that one character that the audience can sit there and this is the audience proxy. This is my entry point. You know, explain it to me like I'm 5 type character where it's things can get distilled down so that the audience can understand things as this proxy character starts to figure things out. And I think it's good to have that character, especially in the high concept stuff where you've got all these big ideas and big themes and stuff. So
yeah, he's very relatable, and he also is the guy that tells Wang, who's working with very closely, the scientist Wang, is like, forget all that shit. Let's just focus on this problem.
Yeah.
Who are
Brian,
these people?
Let's take a second here to acknowledge Darius Munchausen super sticker.
Our great friend Darius Munchausen has given us a $4 super sticker. I can't see what that super sticker is.
It's the pear with the coffee.
Oh, cool. Thanks, Darius. Appreciate that. And thank you, everybody, for being here in the chat and then watching the show.
There is a question here. Maybe you could enlighten us.
Is it on YouTube? I don't know if it is actually on YouTube for like each episode specifically. It's available on various streaming services in Asia, which is where I've accessed my copy. I don't think it's been released specifically in the Western world right now. It's a 10-cent show. It's on Rakuten Viki, which is a service I subscribe to. Don't think it's on YouTube. There's a lot of trailers for it on YouTube, a lot of clips. So I think it's quite hard to get a hold of right now. I'm hoping there'll be a wider release, although with the Netflix version coming, I don't know how that's going to work.
Yeah.
And for Darius, we have this one.
I like you. You have balls. I like balls.
Yeah, I really do like this particular character, and as you say, he's the relatable one. Actually, I've got a little bit of a clip. Yeah, The Expanse, in terms of scope, it's an interesting comment doing it. I think the Expanse novels are, for me, the other big ones of the last 10, 20 years that have had the scope of these books, because these books start with the conflict on Earth. They eventually move to alien invasion, battles in space. It goes forward hundreds and then thousands of years, almost to the end of the universe. So it's that level of scope in the series of novels. The first one is very much about the conflict on Earth. Pretty soon it moves on from that. So it is free on YouTube. Okay, I wasn't aware of that. Thanks for looking into that. Yeah. It's worth watching. I mean, absolutely. It's a little slow in places. It stretched it out to 30 episodes of 40 minutes each. But when it gets to the key stuff, it's really compelling. And there's a case to be made that slow is good in some instances, rather than the sort of splash bang wallop.
So is the Chinese series in Chinese? What are the subtitles that we're seeing?
There are English subtitles available. So I've been watching it in Chinese with English subtitles, which is most of the. I mean, for me, most of the content I watch from Asia or India, I watch it in the original language with subtitles.
Yep.
I do not like dubbed things.
Yeah, I'm a subtitled snob myself.
Yeah, I don't like dubbed stuff, dubbed into English, overdubbed. I just think it throws me off.
Pretty soon, and they're working on this technology now, where they'll actually do the face and voice and mouth replacements in every single language translation. So the actor is speaking whatever language the audience is watching, and the mouth lines up and everything. It's all AI machine learning crap.
Possible they might not need. Maybe they won't need actors at all then.
Right.
So thanks for pointing out that it is on YouTube for free. I was not aware of that because I've been watching it on an Asian streaming service. And I think it's a big production. It's a fairly new show. I think it's 2023. The guy here on the left is the Asian general who's in charge of the Asian Battle Command, who are prepared for a military response to anything that may happen. That there's North American versions, European versions. So there's a political structure in the novels and the show that you don't really get too much of an insight into. You see the military structure, but you don't see the political structure above. So he's being very coy, the author, around who's in charge of the world. Is it our current governments? Is it somebody else? Is it an alternative version of the Earth with some sort of global overview? He's pretty coy about that. It soon becomes irrelevant when it moves several thousand years forward. But I do like this guy. A very relatable character. This particular character here that Wang is talking to is the supposed leader of the frontiers of science. She turns out she isn't really the leader. She keeps referring though to a commander. The commander then turns out to be the older scientist lady, and a character or characters called Lord. Lord has told us to do this. Lord has told us to do that. Lord eventually is revealed as the Trisolaris people sending messages and guiding them. And because they've got these photon supercomputers that can travel across the galaxy, and once they get here, they've got quantum entanglement to report back to Trisolaris, they can see everything humans are doing instantly. So it makes it kind of difficult to fight against an enemy like that.
Yeah.
Now, they can't go faster than the speed of light, though. So that if they want to physically invade and take over our solar system, they still have to travel in spaceships. It's LORD, Lord, which is a very religious name. So some of the people in Frontiers of Science see this almost as a religious thing. This religious character Lord is going to come and save us from our sins.
Yeah, there is definitely a cultish aspect to parts of the Frontiers of Science.
Which kind of goes back to that question of the second coming allegory.
Absolutely. They're a cult, but like all cults, they're splintered into groups. There's redemptionists who believe that humans can be saved. There are Adventists who just want to wipe it all out and start again. And as time goes on, they start to fight each other within that cult, not just fight everybody else. There are more enemies within the cult than they are with the rest of humans. So, but meanwhile,
how revolutionary movements start to work, right?
Yeah, and I love the scenes within the games. So the game stuff within it is fantastic because basically you get this weird planet completely wiped out time and time again by extreme heat or extreme cold. But there's also fascinating stuff around them trying to develop the calendar that will predict the stable eras. So it starts off with they build giant spheres that rotate with guys turning them around to try and predict it. Doesn't work. They've got guys that try to do it supernaturally. It doesn't work. And then eventually they get to the point where they build a giant computer made of people, which is one of the most fascinating scenes. So the in the game, the emperor or whatever he is that's running the society at the time gets it's a guy playing von Neumann, and there's Newton and somebody else, and he gets them to build this giant computer made of people, millions of people. They hold up colors to do the computations, and then you pull back on it and it looks like a giant semiconductor and computer from a distance. And then they've got inputs and outputs, and they've got guys on horses going up and down the bus communicating in their attempt to try and do these calculations to predict the next stable era. And that stuff is fascinating when you see it in the game, in the show. Yeah, and it's of course it doesn't work out the way they think it's going to work out, because people put the wrong sign up, and the computer keeps breaking and they have to reset it. And that means like basically executing thousands of people and bringing in new ones. Actually, that stuff's quite funny. But all with this aim of trying to figure out these stable eras. And the humans in the game don't know why, though. They think it's just a game and a puzzle to be solved. The puzzle is they're trying to solve it on behalf of somebody else that actually lives in those conditions. So that stuff's well worth watching if you get the chance. So I actually did want to show one more little clip of video if I can. Have we got time? We're 9. Yeah, we're not at the top of the hour yet. Oops. So this is just a little clip of the two main guys, the detective and the scientist. He keeps the detective, but because Wang has this countdown in front of his eyes the whole time, the scientist guy can't see it. The cop can't see it, so yeah, my experiments are ruined. I've got this countdown in my eyes all the time. I don't know what's going to happen. It's frightening, you know. I've seen the universe flicker, and but he says, "Nah, don't worry about it. We'll figure it out together." So he is a great guy. But,
at that point, it becomes a buddy cop movie.
To a certain extent. I mean, this guy he's investigating the frontiers of science. He's investigating a journalist who's working with them. And I have to say that the journalist is also one of my favorite characters, but for slightly different reasons. And this is the girl that plays the journalist. She's probably the closest thing, and may everyone forgive me for my misogyny and dinosaur-like sexism. She's pretty cute, so she's the cute factor in the show. Yeah, there's a dancing flash mob outside the restaurant, but they're doing their morning calisthenics, whatever. But yeah, she's a reporter ultimately working with one of the Frontiers of Science guys, who's the leader of the Adventists, who basically is the Bill Gates, Klaus Schwab character who wants to wipe everything out because humans are irredeemable. And she's unwittingly working for this guy. It won't stop yapping and loves the back door. Anyway, she's a cute character. Yeah. I would definitely recommend, I mean, we've got a lot more to talk about and unpacking it, but I would definitely recommend reading the book. But check this show out as well. And what I don't know yet is what the differences between this and the Netflix version that's coming up is. And this is certainly the first released artwork, if I could present this screen, from the Netflix show. So they're going to use this artwork as some of the promo stuff. Which I actually, it's really neat artwork. I don't know whether the show is going to be as many episodes, whether it's going to be like shorter. It's certainly still focused on because it is set in China. most of the first book is set in China. There's some is moves across to North America. What is the difference is going to be? Is it going to change the story in any way, or are the characters going to change?
There are 4 minutes left.
So, so the Netflix show will certainly is produced by David Benioff and D.B. Weiss.
Oh my God!
And
the Game of Thrones guys.
yes,
Yep.
so it does feature. Speaking of Game of Thrones, I think Liam Cunningham might be in it.
Well,
obviously.
At least they have all the books written this time. So.
Yeah.
Well, they've got all 3 books, yes. Although, again, I think they may be building it this on the first. It may be just still based on the first book. Benedict Wong is in it, who's a pretty good actor. He's the Doctor Strange guy.
Yeah.
Although he's English, which is bizarre. He's from England. He's not who you think he is. Liam Cunningham is also going to star, and then there's a bunch of. Unfortunately, one of the executive producers is also Ryan Johnson. So,
yeah, that's what gave me a big pause on this whole Netflix adaptation.
Yeah, red flag there too. Rosamund Pike and Brad Pitt are also executive producers, although I don't think they're in the show.
Oh, they're there through Plan B, is that right?
Yeah, it's a Plan B thing. Yeah, Jonathan Pryce is also an English actor who's in the show. Is it Isa Gonzalez is also one of the stars. So it does appear to be sticking to the main story of the first book. I can't imagine how much they would want to change it, So,
well, if they're going with a more international type of cast, I'm wondering if they're going to the Netflix adaptation is going to be more global and not just China, and maybe that reduces some of the potential for the criticism that's inevitable. Because we've already seen it, with Congress, members of Congress sitting there going, "Hey, Netflix, maybe this is not such a good idea." Chinese propaganda and stuff.
Yeah,
but if we globalize, we have, because there are some names in that cast you've just listed that I don't think they're Chinese. So
No.
They are not, and there are, even in the Chinese adaptation, there are non-Chinese actors playing some of the North American roles.
Like the guy that plays Mike Evans.
Yeah, Mike Evans, who's a key character. Although I think I've hardly reached the point in the adaptation where he's in the Chinese version. He's just coming into it, and some of the action does then move over to North America. Panama Canal in particular is featured quite heavily towards the end.
They're probably going to lean into the environmental side of it, to be honest.
Probably.
This is with Netflix and some of the people involved.
Yeah, the Chinese version
We
does,
have 1 minute,
does touch upon so environmentalism and environmental issues are part of the story. There's no getting away from that. I think in the Chinese TV adaptation, it was a little bit ambiguous because ultimately the inspiration for some of the bad things that happen are these people who are really into the message of environmentalism. So they're not necessarily portrayed as the good guys, but I'm not saying that the effects of environmental degradation are not featured in the show. So it's a bit of a mixed message for me. I couldn't quite figure out where the author's trying to play both sides evenly. Just before we hit the top of the hour, Gary has slipped in the back door.
I was watching from the back room. I wanted to pop in after the show.
We have to go to our break.
See you after the break.
Take us out.
Hi guys, this is Gary from Pop Culture Minefield here on KGRA, and we're leaving for our first break. I hope we survive.
A birthday without her mom, an anniversary without her husband, her wedding day without her dad. These are the days when military families feel it most of all. The loss of their soldier, their sailor, their airman, their Marine, their Coast Guardsmen. Families never forget their loved ones lost to war or illness or suicide. Families never forget. And neither do we. We are TAPS, the Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors. We provide resources, support, and comfort to heal the hearts and meet the needs of grieving military families, all at no cost to them. Your generosity can make an enormous difference in the lives of the families of our fallen military heroes. Our military families need to know they are not alone and they are not forgotten. Show them your support at taps.org.
Question facing humanity is on the verge of being settled once and for all. The Mutual UFO Network has been at the forefront of this journey for nearly 50 years. Our members worldwide are dedicated to the research, documentation, and awareness that will shape the future of humanity. Won't you join us?
Hey members, the new KGRA DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA DB.
Oh wow, we survived! Welcome back from the commercial break. Now for some more Pop Culture Minefield on KGRA.
Well, yeah, welcome back, everybody. I'd like to once again thank everybody for being here for the YouTube show, for the KGRA digital broadcasting. Hello, everybody out there. We're also going out, I believe, on Facebook and other platforms that Bill
And the digital radio.
And the digital radio.
And also, we want to thank Fuel Up, because I'm having mine right now.
Indeed. So Fuel Up indeed. And I'm just waiting for my Fuel Up to arrive.
Yeah, hopefully Terry will be getting hold of you here soon.
Cool.
Very excited about all this stuff. Look at this. I was wanting to just watch from the back room because I was enjoying the subject matter. Not to mention, you are so sexy with that Scottish accent.
I feel I'm doing too much talking, though.
Well, Polly's just messing with you. Don't let that bug you. No, that's what this is. That's what the format is.
Yeah,
I do not know this gentleman right here. Who's that?
Ah, right. So Jason from Sci-Fi for Me TV. This is Gary, Backdoor Gary, our
Greetings.
Pop Culture Minefield.
It's dueling Sean Connery's.
Absolutely.
Gosh.
Not even gonna. Although I am
laser pointed at my willy.
Although I am curious, Brian, how a Scotsman got to Canada.
I know, right?
I married a Canadian woman, so I was rescued.
Basically, it's always chasing a girl. That's how I got to.
It is. It's all about the ladies. That's how I ended up here. I've been here for quite a while now, but I guess I'll never lose the accent. You know, I'm stuck with it.
No, I tell you, and I feel like it was a major coup getting you on the channel to step in for Chris when he had to back out because he got that job at Apple. And I'm like, oh my God, I feel so good.
You're trying to say that because I don't have a job, this was easy to get me in here, is what you're saying.
I'm not saying that at all, but it worked.
I'm unemployable. But anyway, yes, it's. I hope everyone's enjoying this discussion. I'm not sure if I'm doing the book series and the show justice, but
what's this thing you call a book?
A book. It's a thing that you read. You read a book. A book.
But I'm going to bail, guys. I just want to stop in and say hi to everybody. It's good to meet you, man.
Hey, Gary. Before you go,
hi, Martin. Yeah.
Can you extend
Can you
extend your thanks to Darius Munchausen and Monkey Jibus for their membership?
Oh, of course, man. Thank you for your membership, guys. So Monkey Jibus, 7 months, and what's the other one? How long?
Darius.
15 months.
Wow.
Holy crap. Somebody is never broke. If you understand that, it means that YouTube, if it hits your account, cancels your membership if you don't have money in there. So Darius always has money in there. I like that. That's awesome.
How do we
Somebody's got a
access that
job,
then?
Brian.
Yeah, too old even for Walmart. That's too much work. That's hard work. Standing around all day stacking shelves and greeting people. I couldn't do that kind of hard work.
I agree. And by the way, Davina, it's true. We are going to start trying to do a little more of that because I know we focus a lot on entertainment as far as film and television. But the fact is, Keith and I, too, just like you, Brian, and I know John, love sci-fi books. Martin, on the other hand, is functional illiterate.
Says the man who can hardly say the word functionally.
Functionally. Functionally.
Are you
But you're
feng
functional.
shui? Is it the Chinese feng shui?
Well, if anybody ever wants to talk about the Honor Harrington books from David Weber, I'm down. I'm right.
So am
there.
I.
Yeah.
So am I.
I'll tell you
David
what.
Weber's one of my favorite authors. Although
Great.
I think I like his Safehold series a little better than I like Honor Harrington.
I
On
haven't.
one of our
had-
fantastic Thursdays, we should do that.
Well, I
not
agree.
Friday.
We should be doing more book discussions. I mean, I haven't made one for a little while, but I do make videos about science fiction novels. There's a bunch of books that I'd love to talk about in book series. Not all science fiction, other things too, but we don't talk about books nearly enough, I think, in our.
No, I agree. And Keith has done a couple of Thursday shows of his, program, Morning Coffee with Keith, talking about books. And I love those where you really get into the minutia of what inspires science fiction. Because before there was movies, there was books. And sci-fi was right there at the onset. I mean, all the way back to Mary Shelley.
Oh, and thank you,
yeah.
Anime Confuser, for your 7 months membership.
Was Anima here?
Oh, yeah.
She is here. She's been here
I
since the
told her I was
start.
going to say hi to you guys. So,
Yeah, Davina's mentioning Greg Bear, one of my favorite authors of all time, sadly departed now, but I could talk about his books all day long. So,
Yeah, and we have a program called Live from the Bunker. I try to get a number of authors in for interviews. We've talked to Joe Haldeman, we've talked to Mercedes Lackey, we've talked to
love Joe Haldeman.
all
Have you-
sorts of people. Yeah,
Nice.
famous and not. And, obscure authors that are just getting started and stuff. It's really good to have those conversations.
I would love to talk to Larry Niven. I love Ringworld. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
I thought you were more a fan of Ringworm.
It's
No.
funny. We made David Brin late to his own panel at Worldcon when it was here.
Oh, I thought you were going to say to his own
Nice.
funeral.
No. We were interviewing him. We had him live on live on our channel, and this was back in 2016. And he's just going, and he's just talking, and his handler's back over there going, "You got
Time.
oh, you're late for your own panel. Sorry." Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. No, I've done that too, dude. Like when Keith and I have interviewed people and they get really engaged and they're like, "Oh man, I'm late for my panel at VisionCon," and I'm like, "Oh, sorry."
Yeah.
But no, I feel you on that one. But hey, guys, I'm going to bail. I'm going to continue watching this morning, and I'll probably comment a little bit in the chat. But great show, Brian. Great show.
Thank you, sir, and thanks for coming in, and appreciate your support.
Outstanding. I appreciate it too. And wait a minute. Why isn't anybody's name showing up? Is that because of the thing?
Because of the banner.
Ah, the banner. Okay. So it's Jason Hunt.
Yes.
All right. Outstanding.
Unless I'm in trouble, then it's George.
Yeah.
That's
Before I go,
politic.
I could not say my daughter's full name. Her name is Zoe Kirsten Moira Cassell. And I would say her name and she would cry because we'd established that when she was in trouble, we'd say her full name.
Yeah.
So anytime, it was really funny, and I had to stop doing it. I'm like, oh my God, I got to stop punishing her by saying her name. Maslow's dog, kind of stuff there. So
But that's
anyway.
how it is. That's how it is with a lot of kids. I mean,
Are you dead?
Oh yeah. I got a 21-year-old who knows everything. And when you use the full name, you know you're in trouble. It's about to get real.
Exactly. Is that your oldest or youngest?
He's my oldest.
Only?
Yeah.
Oh, smart guy. Stopped at 1. Outstanding. Yeah.
Davina, I've not seen that show. I've written it down here, Prisoners of Gravity, so I'll certainly check that out.
Well, I'm going to go watch the show, guys. John, thanks a lot, man. Remember, guys, he's going in for his surgery in about a little over a week. So everybody be extra nice to him.
Indeed.
We might, he's going to change. I'm telling you, I'm very excited about this thing he's doing, man.
It's the surgeons that need to be extra nice to him. Not
Oh,
us.
well, yeah.
Yeah.
Do I need to repeat what I said the other day, John?
No, that's okay.
No, I won't do it. Okay.
Please.
Because you never know what the doctor's doing while you're
Oh, my
sleeping. I'm just
God.
saying.
Yeah, no, that's all right.
All right. Bye, guys.
Cheers,
Bye.
Gary. Gary will now
Oh,
slip out the
bye.
back door. He's going to slip out the back, Jack.
The trick to
Brian.
recovering from surgery is being nice to the nurses, because
Mm.
they're the ones who are going to make a difference. Right?
Fortunately, I only have to be there overnight, so.
Well, and
Yeah.
for all of our audience that has been so generous with the backdoor references, we have this video for you.
Strong. I'm gonna go check the back door. Back door.
Indeed. It's a legend was born. So I think we were talking a little bit before the show, and we've mentioned it a couple of times about the author and the Hugo Awards in China, which are being held in China, and there's a lot of controversy around that. And the author himself is a Chinese author that lives in China, has said a few things in the past that have been controversial. I get it. When you live there, you got to walk through a minefield of political considerations. So, hang on a sec. So the author himself. So Jason, you were talking a little bit about the Hugos this year and some of the controversy.
Yeah, a lot of it stems from a profile that came out of the New Yorker in 2015, and they're basically saying, he's China's answer to Arthur C. Clarke, and some of the stuff that's in that article when they're talking to him about policies in China and that sort of thing, he spouts the usual expected propaganda that you would get from agents of the Chinese government, and has some people concerned. It's a two-part problem here, because you have his statements in support of the communist Chinese regime, which is oppressive and mean, and that they're the bad guys, and then you have the fact that Worldcon is in China, period. And a lot of authors are having problems with that. And the irony is that a lot of the authors who have a problem with Worldcon in China are the same people that use Chinese communist techniques and practices to
like a Scalzi or somebody
discriminate against other authors that are guilty of wrongthink. I mean, that's how the whole Sad Puppies thing came about. Was Larry Correa and Brad Torgerson, that group, exposed the Hugos for being a political animal.
Yeah.
If you're
Scalzi is involved, isn't he? So
Scalzi's there. I mean, David Gerald, Cat Rambo, all of these people that are constantly wailing against libertarians and conservatives. I mean, in 2015, John Wright and his wife were directly attacked at a party, not physically, but verbally. I mean, somebody got up in JD's face and just railed against the Wrights about their politics, and they made a very pointed attack at everybody that was supported by the Sad Puppies. Tony Weisskopf, who was an editor at Ban. That was the year of the No Award, and they were so proud of themselves that they shut everybody out. And it was like, okay, you've just killed the Hugos. There's no more credibility to the Hugo Awards.
Yeah.
But these same people are now complaining that the Hugos, the Worldcon, is being held in China.
Yes, indeed. So they want it both ways, in a sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like all other award things. So they've killed. All awards are dead, whether it be movies, TV,
Yeah,
literature.
well,
They're all dead.
The Dragon Awards started out, fairly innocuous, and it was an answer to all of that. But there are some people that are concerned that maybe the Dragons could be going that way as well, based on some of the nominations from these past couple of years. So, who knows?
So yeah, well, just what do these complainers want? Because if, as you say, many of them support a lot of the same policies and tactics of the people they're now criticizing. Just exactly what do they hope to achieve with that? I don't get it. That, like, just make your minds up. I mean, when you look at the beginning of the stuff that's set in Three Body in the book and the show in the 60s in the Mao era, exactly condemns the tactics that they seem to use an awful lot. Somebody says the wrong thing, like the poor girl that's the astrophysicist girl that's at the labor camp. She's thrown into prison. They want struggle sessions. They want her to confess to crimes of thought, and so on and so on. And the book is, and I know it's there came a point in China where they were able to criticize the Mao era. The book is quite explicit about how awful that is.
But does it criticize current era? I stumbled on a Reddit thread this morning talking about his the things that he writes in there. Basically, you talk about mixed messages earlier and trying to have it both ways. And there are some people that read this book and see a criticism of the current regime kind of in the subtext. But it's possible that it's okay to criticize Mao because we're not under Mao now.
Yes, that became okay.
Yeah, but when is it going to be okay to criticize Xi?
Now, there's a debate whether it's a double standard or whether it's walking a very thin line to preserve yourself, because he is a Chinese citizen. He does live in China. And as we've seen, it's very difficult to criticize certain regimes when you're in them.
Yeah.
Because you got to think of your family, you got to think of your personal safety. And we all like to think we'd be courageous and would speak out against things. But in reality, you've got a family and a life to worry about. You probably don't. Now, if you ever left China, that might be different. I don't know. So he's walking, you could say he's walking a line. I don't personally see a lot of subtext in these novels criticizing the current Chinese government. I don't see that subtext. He's very careful to avoid talking about any government in them.
Right. Well, in that New Yorker article, the quotes that people keep coming back to has to go with both the Uyghur concentration camps where they've got Muslims all locked up, where he basically says, well, what do you expect? If they were walking around free, they'd be blowing up train stations, they'd be terrorists. And then the other thing, he says, if China were to transform into a democracy, it would be hell on earth. I would evacuate tomorrow.
Yeah.
The United States or Europe. But it was like, well, hang on, you're complaining. If China became a democracy, you would escape to a democracy? How is that? How do you do that?
Maybe he recognizes we're no longer a democracy, though.
Well, we never have been, but that's another conversation to have. Yeah.
This particular article I've got on the screen, it's from 2020, and he does talk about the Russian Revolution and his love of the Russian Revolution. Now, he quickly moves on to talk about literature, but he does say Russian Revolution, and he doesn't specify whether he means literature or whether he means the actual communist revolution. So, and then he goes on to talk about Tolstoy and War and Peace and so on, being a big, huge influence on him. So he's kind of walking lines all the time.
Well, and in addition to Liu, you've also got Sergei Lukyanenko, who's a Russian author, is the other guest of honor at Worldcon this year in China, and he's been very public calling for the extermination of the Ukrainians. So I was like, do we really want to go to this conference? Do we really want to go to this convention this year? So it's to me, it seems like, that group is having a little bit of a crisis of conscience because, what goes around comes around, and is starting to bite them in the back, because this is the very kind of thing that you've been doing, and now you're complaining about.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out this year.
So when is that happening then?
April, I think.
Okay.
I got it.
It is interesting because if some of these writers that you're talking about, if they start saying start saying something the Chinese government doesn't like, they might find themselves subject to the same kind of pressures that they would impose on others. Those authors would impose on others who have different views. So may come back to bite them. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, he talks in this article a lot about his early reading of science fiction during the Cultural Revolution era, and the fact that he believes that prior to that, the actual socialist revolution and prior to the Mao Cultural Revolution era was actually a good one. So a bit of nostalgia for the year one policies of Mao. Before that, he thinks it was everything was super. Relatively open era culturally. I think a lot of people would probably disagree with that. I don't want to get too political, and as I say, I've a lot of. If I was him, I'm not sure I'd be saying anything different either. So,
no, October 18th through the 22nd this year.
Yeah, it's October. Okay, yeah. So he goes on to talk a lot about philosophy and so on. So the books, his books, as I say books, I can't help it. Books, his novels do walk a fine line. They don't. He tries to avoid specifically talking about current day political structures. So there's in the Three Body book, it's all about there's a military organization which has global representatives in each region. Nothing about the political structure that may or may not exist above that. And the characters do not espouse political views about current events. They do talk about philosophy and politics in many ways, but they don't talk about, well, I don't like this government because it does X or Y, or I do like this government because it does X or Y. It's all very below that. There's no, so whether he's doing that because he just isn't interested or whether he can't. And I have no problem with that in some ways, because I don't particularly want to read epic science fiction novels that are talking about, today's political concerns.
I think it does kind of hint. The book does kind of hint at there is a one world government.
It hints at it for sure, and certainly in the later centuries beyond the events of the first book, that is a scenario they're in. But it almost becomes irrelevant what the government is at that time because of the struggle with Trisolaris and to preserve humanity and to find another home for humanity and so on. It almost becomes irrelevant whether someone's left or right.
Well, and I've talked to David Weber about this with regard to the Harrington books, because he's got a number of different. There's a lot of politics in those books, but the characters have politics, and it's not obvious what David Weber's politics are. Is important for the characters to be consistent in their politics. And if I'm reading a book and I see politics, there's a couple of things. There's a difference between the politics of the author and the politics within the story. And if you want to tell a political story, that's fine. And within the context of the story, like with this, you got one world government implied in the story, then that's fine. As long as it's internally consistent, then there's not a problem there.
Yeah, and I think he's been very careful in these books to construct a view of civilization that doesn't espouse a particular political viewpoint, although there is certainly a lot of discussion of the Earth working together to do things. And there is the military guys are all seen as the good guys as well, I noticed. So the guy that's running the Chinese military, or the Asian region battle command, as they call it, is smart and he's good and he's effective, and they talk about not wanting to overstep their bounds in terms of looking into these scientists and all that kind of stuff. Whereas in reality, I think it would be, let's just lock them all up and torture them. So there's an idealized view of what that military structure might look like, I think.
That was definitely the view that they portrayed of the Mao regime, especially with the woman's father, because even her mother got involved in the torture of her father just because of his non-Maoist views.
And I've read a lot of books and seen a lot of documentaries about the Mao era, and read some stories of people who survived being imprisoned in it. And it is tough to resist that kind of era where you're, basically you've got no escape from if they've got a focus on you, you're done. So I guess he's walking several lines. I think. Soon, when it moves beyond the current era, though, so the second book, The Dark Forest, particularly, it moves many, many years ahead. And they actually invent, one of the things that's in the book is hibernation. So they invent the technology to hibernate, and they can skip through eras. Then, if you're chosen to be eligible, that you can skip through centuries of development on Earth. So they use it as a means to hibernate people who they think are going to need to help fight the aliens in the future. And if there's nothing they can do in a certain era, they hibernate them and move them forward. So it's also a mechanism to move the story forward without losing all the characters. That they can say, well, let's skip present day concerns. Let's go forward 5,000 years. Interestingly, it started in the stories as a way for rich people to live forever, in a sense. But they make the point in the second book that people stopped using it because they didn't want to just wake up in a future where Earth was still dominated by these nasty aliens. So they preferred to die. And then it became more of a technique to preserve certain people that they could use to help fight the aliens in future generations. So, but it is used as a time-skipping device in the books as well. And I don't want to go too deeply necessarily into the second and third books, but it also then develops the themes of how do you interact with alien species? So cosmic sociology, as they would call it, whose motivations may be good, bad, or we just don't comprehend them anyway. And the amusing irony of it is that the Tri-Solaris civilization who wishes to conquer and exploit Earth themselves become the victim of other civilizations who go, oh, look at these upstarts who are trying to do
fireworks, though.
Yeah.
With every revolution that they end up turning on themselves.
Exactly. There's even one of the bits I absolutely loved when they were talking about the it's like visually, I can see it in my mind reading it. There's a giant pair of eyes appear in the sky above Tri-Solaris, and it's someone from a higher dimension looking in on them. And of course, as you would, they all freak out. They go, what the? Because they've been playing with this higher dimension thing, building supercomputers in a higher dimension and then squeezing them into a proton size. Sophons, they call them. Well, one day, these huge eyes appear and somebody's looking in on them going, what the fuck are you doing? And they realize, oh, shit.
It's kind of like that reveal at the end of was it the second Men in Black or the third, the second one, where you have a universe inside a locker, and it turns out our universe is also inside a locker. So, all right. Speaking of time and skipping, I got to bail today, but this has been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed spending time here with this and talking about this. I like opportunities to come in and kibitz with other people that have the same interests. It's fun.
Well, thanks very much for joining us, Jason. I know that your deep knowledge of science fiction has certainly helped me muddle through today's show with my inexpert and inelegant descriptions of things, but appreciate it very much, mate. Just give us a little idea of what you're up to in the coming days.
Okay, well, we do have a number of programs that are on. Well, not that one. That's tonight. Let's see this one. This is our lineup. We have a number of different programs on our channel, which goes live to both YouTube and Odyssey. Sci-Fi for Me TV covers science fiction, fantasy, horror. Saturday morning, our Good Morning Multiverse is all news for the week, and then all of the rest of these are discussion programs with various different topics. We cover Star Trek and Star Wars and horror and lots of different things. So we've got a Discord server. We've got all sorts of different social media platforms where you can find us. So there's tons of ways to connect to us and tell us what you think about the things that we say. So always good to have new people coming into our chats and express their opinions too. And we won't call anybody names.
Well, not unless you want to. Not unless they deserve it.
If they give us a super chat and ask for it, we might think about that.
Yeah. Well, Jason, I really appreciate appreciate it, mate. Please,
pleasure meeting you.
Yeah,
yes,
go to Sci-Fi
absolutely.
TV.
I had a lot of fun today. Thanks for having me.
We'll do it again sometime. But
okay, all right. Talk to y'all later.
Take care, mate. See ya. What a great guy. And yeah, please, everybody, go to check out Sci-Fi for Me TV. Subscribe. Which it's premium science fiction and other entertainment content. I mean, it's the kind of stuff we all love. So, so I think one of the so just to talk about some of the wider themes in this story, which let's get away from the political stuff. One of the things I do like about it is this is the whole Fermi paradox, SETI, Dark Forest thing, which is a huge part of the stories. And I'm a big fan, that's not the right word to use, of the Fermi paradox and everything about it. So I'm sure you guys know what that means. I'm sure everybody in the audience does, but why is it, given the Drake equation and what we think there should be other civilizations out there in the galaxy and other galaxies, why are we hearing nothing? Why do we have no contact that we know of with other civilizations? And obviously that's the Fermi paradox. They should be out there, but we don't hear them. Why not? All sorts of theories.
My theory is that we're under quarantine.
And that is indeed one of the theories. We are under quarantine because we're not advanced enough. We're not mature enough. We're like the upstart kid.
We're like a 3-year-old with a loaded revolver.
That's right, yeah. Which is certainly one of the theories, and is a very plausible one. The second one is that the universe, including our galaxy and other galaxies, are so large, and the time scales between civilizations developing, existing, and then collapsing are such that, assuming they do collapse, and many of them do, is that we're just not in the right time frame to have that kind of contact. There may have been many advanced civilizations in our galaxy. They've been and gone, or they've not developed yet. So the timing is wrong. There are many other theories why we don't hear anything. But one is the Dark Forest theory, which is it's dangerous as hell out there. And if you put your head up above the parapet and look over, you're going to get it cut off. So everyone shuts up.
Yeah.
And that is pretty much the emphasis of these books, is that you stick your head above that parapet, you're in trouble. So best to shut up, don't make direct contact, hide your techno-signatures. And there are scientists and others on Earth who have said that, Stephen Hawking and others, maybe we should just be a little bit careful about all these attempts to communicate. And that is a central part of these books. I don't know. Do you think? How do you feel about that? Do you think we are in danger?
Well, considering the amount of unidentified activity that goes on, I don't think I don't think if we were in danger, we would already have been. You know, if they're already here, then and they meant us harm, then they would have already done something. Is my point.
Possibly, yeah. So, Davina says we simply could be living in an intergalactic back war. That's true. I mean, we've only really been looking, seriously for 50, 60 years for signs of intelligent life anywhere, and that's a tiny bubble in the galaxy. Drake equation itself could be completely wrong, as it could be that it's always being adjusted. It's full of variables that require assumptions about in terms of civilization density and so on. It could be that life isn't that, well, intelligent life isn't that common. Simple macrobiotic life might be, excuse me, might be relatively common, but the leaps it takes to become a complex organism which can then become self-aware with and manipulate technology may be extremely rare. I mean, we've only just reached that stage. Well, we may have reached it before in the Earth's history. We don't know. That's another subject entirely. It may be that it's not that common.
We won't talk about the billion years of geologic record that's missing.
Well, indeed. Let's not talk about that. Well, we will talk about that in future, though. No, I do. I love talking about that. That's one of the things I do. I do love the whole Fermi paradox, Drake equation, history on Earth, and history of civilization. I think there's an awful lot we don't know yet. There's a lot of gatekeepers would say, "Don't you dare look at that or talk about it."
Yeah.
Particularly in the archaeological fields. But this novel takes the approach that yes, there are many other civilizations out there. They have existed long enough to avoid destruction. Although the whole, of course, the Trisolaris thing is they're actually striving to figure out how to avoid destruction because of their chaotic system they live in.
Yeah.
But they eventually do get to the point where they advance enough to take notice of us. But there are many others out there too. But the reason that they're not talking to each other is because there are predatory civilizations out there who are absolutely interested in only either colonizing, destroying, or eradicating in some way any competitors to them, or they see them as so below them that they don't even they see us as ants,
Yeah.
And we know what we do with insects and ants and rodents and whatever. We tend to destroy them. So, so this book takes that angle of it. Actually, I just wanted to add this is one of the images from there's a lot of really beautiful images in the show. Trying to find out, yeah. So this guy's one of these. He's a mathematical genius who the leader of the frontiers of science has pretended to marry and protects, and she's got him working on solutions to the three-body problem. And he comes up with some stuff. So anyway, that's a lot of cast photos, but. So yeah, the book does go there and into that area of what is the nature of life in the universe. Are we at risk just by announcing our presence? I think though we make an awful lot out of our broadcasting to the universe, even the signals we are sending out and have been since the 30s. A lot of them are pretty weak. And yes, they've gone a certain distance, but the galaxy is a very big place, so we may not have gathered the attention of anybody yet, if they're out there. Or they could be here already. I think, John, you got a feeling they're here already.
Yeah.
So
that's my opinion on it anyway. I don't know whether it's valued or not, but the amount of evidence that something is happening is too great to ignore, in my opinion.
So what would be some of the key things that you believe are evidence that we are being watched?
Well, you've got the amount of UAP activity, we'll call it. And there's obviously something out there that we don't understand. Now, whether that means it's intergalactic or interstellar or interdimensional.
Do you think the recent move towards, at least for some governments, to acknowledge that there are UAPs that we don't know what they are, is an acknowledgement that they know already?
Well, just based off, for example, when they announced that the F-117 stealth fighter existed, they did that to cover up the B-2. When the B-2 was announced, they did that to cover up Aurora. So I think it's the same thing. Well, they're announcing that there's these objects, we don't know what they are. We've interacted with them. What are they covering up? What's worse that they don't want us to know? I know that sounds cynical, but
No, it's not. I don't know about cynical. I mean, my thinking around this has always been, or my questioning has always been, is the reason, if such alien contact has already been made and there are indeed alien civilizations either here or we know that they're watching us, what about that is so bad that our governments do not want us to know? Why? Do they even figure mass panic? Do they figure civilizational degradation because we go, well, we're screwed? Or what do you think?
well, there's the religious aspects too. What would happen if suddenly they landed on like the White House lawn? How would that affect the world's religions?
Yeah, no, that in itself would be an entire show's discussion.
Yeah,
I mean, strictly speaking, religions are actually a lot more flexible than they may appear, and they could probably accommodate that worldview somehow into their thinking. Well, when we talked about this being on the Earth, we really meant it was across the entire galaxy. The Earth is just the example because we happen to live on Earth, kind of thing. So, like a space Jesus, I don't know. There's been a number of books and shows that have kind of featured on that. It kind of annoys me because I would like to know, while I still have time on this, in this realm and in this planet, definitively that we are not alone in the universe. I think that would be a major piece of satisfaction for me in my life to know that we're not just the only civilization that exists. So tell me, I can take it. How about you, Martin? Could you take it?
Of course.
Yes, I just wish they would actually. Yeah, now it may be because we're just speculating on this, and they don't exist, and we don't have definitive proof, and governments are not going to talk about it because they get nothing to talk about. Possibly.
In fact, it's not the confirmation that we are not alone that I could consider unbearable. It would be the opposite.
Yes, I agree. The thought that we were truly an anomaly and that we just hit the cosmic jackpot and it's only us and there's nothing out there, or at least it's so far away that we'll never contact them because
That would
there's
be
only one or two.
horrifying.
That would be horrifying to me.
Yeah.
It'd be like waking up and finding everyone was gone around you. It would be horrifying. I actually wanted to highlight. We go back to this Davina chat about Rendezvous with Rama. I think Childhood's End is possibly an apt discussion around. Here's a bunch of advanced aliens who come to Earth and basically completely change Earth's civilization, and then in effect destroy it, but not through, in their eyes, not through not because they don't like us, it's because they just take the children and say, well, we're going to do something better with them.
Yeah.
That's a kind of a frightening scenario.
Yeah.
Like, we like you guys, but you know what? You adults are irretrievable. We're just going to take take your descendants, and we'll take them off, and they'll live in galactic civilization without you, and your planet can be left to rot. Not because we don't like you, but that was a frightening one for me. That one, very frightening.
Yeah, that would be.
Enjoy, Benny.
Yeah, cocaine.
Bye,
Here
Benny.
to start. Cheers, Benny.
Man, this
Go ahead,
the
man.
cocaine bear is going to be here in Mexico on March 16. March 16. Why?
So you're excited for it then?
Yes, I have been waiting for that shit for months.
I can't say I'm that excited. I mean, like, it doesn't seem to me like there's a lot of story in there. It's like
I don't
bear
want to
finds
story.
cocaine.
I want to laugh.
Bear finds cocaine. Bear gets off its tits. Bear kills people. Bear goes back for more cocaine.
Yeah.
That's
I'm rooting for the bear.
Now, if the cocaine caused the bear to become sentient and give it, super intelligence powers, that might have been exciting.
I just want to laugh.
Yeah, actually, this is something I have not looked into yet. There's a fan fiction, I believe, you could call it fan fiction, Cavatina, which is a fourth book. I think it's a fan fiction based upon the redemption of Remembrance of Earth Past series, called The Redemption of Time, and I do want to look into that. Given the fact that the third book in the series, Death's End, kind of ended with the universe ending, I'm not quite sure where they go after that, but I guess we've got multi-dimensions. It's the old mystery box of multi-dimensions, the MacGuffin.
Yep.
You can do anything. So I do want to look into that, though, because books 2 and 3 do move on to the invasion of Earth by Trisolaris, the conquering and subjugation of the Earth's peoples, but then things not necessarily going the way the Solarians would expect back in their own area, in their own planet. Earth survivors of Earth and escapees trying to find somewhere else in the galaxy to live, and then it goes way further forward with multi-dimensional beings doing stuff, and it basically goes right up to the universe's end. And because of the cryogenics thing, there's a couple of characters managed to make it all the way through. It's far too much to talk about in one show, but it hits just about every major science fiction thing you can think of. SETI and alien intelligences, time travel through cryogenics, multi-dimensional travel, areas where the laws of physics in the universe do not work because of that multi-dimensional stuff. It's got galactic space battles in it, albeit they're shorter than you would hope because of various reasons. The Dark Forest stuff. It's an intriguing series that the author has written, because it does cover all the major things you would hope from a massive space opera, galactic, extending, multi-dimensional epic. So I can't complain. I mean, almost like a Greg Bear with some of his work. It takes you well outside the realms of our current area of Earth and opens up a whole multi-dimensions of possibilities. So
Well,
But
the
yeah,
book kind of leans into the hard sci-fi, but not so much that it's not a enjoyable read.
yeah, that now it does lead into the hard sci-fi a lot, particularly in the early, the first book where
Yeah.
you get introduced to the sophons, these proton-sized supercomputers, and the quantum entanglement, the nanotechnology stuff that's introduced. There are building. In book 2, you get into the building of galactic space fleets,
Yeah.
battleships in space. There is interstellar travel, although the speed of light is not transgressed, at least early on in the story. That's why, although the aliens can see what's going on Earth through these sophons with quantum entanglement, they can't get here instantly. They still have to travel at a appreciable fraction of the speed of light, and they can't. So we know they're coming. They know we know they're coming, but we have to prepare to repel that invasion, and there's years and years and years to do that. It still doesn't mean we get it right. So, and that's why the civilization on Earth is kind of depressed by the knowledge that this fleet is out there, it's coming, and these people have said, "We're your bugs, and we're going to take over your planet because it's much nicer than ours." And there's nothing you can do about it. And in a sense, they're right. There isn't anything we can do about it. And a lot of people on Earth lose hope, and Earth's civilization degrades as a result. There are still a few people fighting and trying hard to gee everybody up to fight this thing, but it becomes a kind of a hopeless task for them, which I found quite interesting. That the demoralization of the human race. Knowing that this, and it's not something that can be covered up by Earth's governments. Everyone knows this is coming.
It's definitely not a shiny, happy, feely book.
It is not. I was actually, whilst there are some victories on a more local scale, certainly at the end of the first book, generally speaking, it's a fairly not depressing, but what's another word for depressing that doesn't mean depressing?
Dark would work.
Dark. It's a fairly dark book around the futility of existence in some ways, which is a very interesting viewpoint to take. There's always a spark of, no, there are good things can be done, but it's a dark book, which is an existential threat to our civilization, and indeed multiple galactic civilizations in the end. So, feel good story of the week. But yeah, please. I mean, I would recommend anyone that's into sci-fi and into epic sci-fi, please read The Three-Body Problem. See what you think. Let us know what you think when you have read it. We'll probably revisit this when the Netflix show comes out. Check the Chinese show out. It's extremely well produced. There's some of the acting is a little, I don't know whether it's the direction that was used, but some of the acting is a little bit on the staring into space meaningfully of that variety, Yeah, as opposed to, I love the cop, he's very animated. And there's some action, it's starting to move as it gets under some action scenes, because there is some physical conflict between groups. So there starts to get melancholy. That's the word Monkey used. It's a very melancholy set of stories, which, if the universe is the way that Leo Cixin thinks, well, we're probably all doomed. We're all doomed. We're all doomed. I think I'm even have a video for that. Hang on, I got a video for that.
We're doomed.
So it's not a feel good happy tale. There are feel good bits within it, as you would expect, but it's on a galactic scale. It's basically saying the universe is not a great place, and Well, ultimately, we know we're all doomed anyway because the heat death of the universe or
Yeah.
whatever. So, it's just trying to be Dune. I don't know if Dune's probably got more. It's got a very different feel from me from Dune.
Yeah.
It's much more hard sci-fi based upon our current civilization as opposed to a fantasy world of. Dune's more about the conflicts. There's a lot of the conflicts between the groups in Dune, which here soon become irrelevant in these stories. It's more of a how can I put it? I don't feel they're similar. There are similarities, but then there's similarities in a lot of science fiction. So
Yeah, it's more of an interstellar.
I would need
interstellar oppression. Not really. Well, oppression's probably the wrong word. No, that's what the aliens are trying to do is basically oppress humans so they can
they
take
are,
over.
but they themselves are also subject to things they
Yeah.
don't know about that are going to happen. I think it's the multi-dimensional aspect and the fact that it extends to the end of the end of the universe eventually, or possibly separates it from Dune. Dune is more of a almost like a family clan struggle, civilizational struggle. I appreciate that someone who knows Dune way better than me, if they came on, would be able to explain that a lot better than I could. So
It's
I
been
really
a long
don't.
time since I read them. So
Yeah, me too. I really don't want to dis or reduce the impact of Dune and the massive scope of the storytelling in that either. But I do feel this does have a very different feel and is aiming at a different set of tropes. There's
yeah.
However, I'm inexpertly describing that. But what appealed to me about it was just some of the mind-bendingly puzzling stuff that's going on. Some of the viewpoint of what an intergalactic struggle would look like from this author's perspective. And the fact that we could be up against things which are just impossible for us to deal with. But the people who are doing it to us, they themselves may have opened a Pandora's box that they don't know about as well.
Unfortunately, we've ran out of time for today.
Yes, indeed. We're reaching the end of our limit. But yeah, check it out. Check the Chinese show out. Somebody did say it was all on YouTube. I watched it on Viki, that streaming service. It's well worth it. It's a little slow. It's 30 episodes long, about 40 minutes each, 45 minutes each. The adverts were amusing in it. I don't know what Chinese television is normally like, and they had a few little adverts at the beginning, then there's a bit in the middle, and then a couple at the end. It's none of these extended 10-minute breaks like you get in terrestrial television here. I have no idea what Chinese TV is like, as I say, but they actually incorporated characters from the show into the adverts.
Well,
which I found...
think we should better start to wrap up, we hope, because we have less than 1 minute.
All right. Well, thanks very much, everyone, for being here and listening to this this chat about this show and these books. I really appreciate it. Thanks to everybody out there on KGRA and Facebook and the other platforms, KGRA Digital Radio, and everyone here on YouTube. Thanks for being extremely active in the chat. I hope you've enjoyed it. It was a little dry in places, I guess, because we're talking about galactic scale sci-fi. But I hope we did it justice. And check out the books, check out the TV show, and we'll talk about the Netflix one when it eventually comes out and what they do with it and what differences they make. The Chinese adaptation has stayed pretty faithful to the books, whether you like the books or not. So that's one thing, I think. So yeah, any final comments?
No, just thanks to the audience.
Yeah, thank you all. Really appreciate you all being here. And I'm on a timer. I'm not used to being on a timer. I'm used to just going on and on and on. And Martin's standing there with a hammer waiting to hit me.
I don't like it.